Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. We're back for more of that SAO greatness. And if you're new here, hi, how's it going? My name is JoJo. I talk about seasonal anime, and yes, I really like SAO. I mean, I definitely will admit that the series has some pretty big flaws, but at the same time, I think that it also has a lot to love to it, too. I definitely find SAO to be like a really fun popcorn show, and I found this first episode to be a really fun popcorn type episode. Except for one scene that we're definitely going to have to talk about. But before we get to that, I would like to say, hey, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. It would be super appreciated. We're trying to hit 25K before the end of the year. So, hitting that subscribe button be genuinely appreciated. But with all of that said, let's actually go ahead and dive into this episode, shall we? Okay, so SAO Alicization War of Underworld Part 2. My god, that title is getting long. Episode 13, and I am gonna go with 13. I've seen some debate over whether or not this should be episode 1 of Part 2 or episode 3 of War of Underworld as a whole. It seems like the consensus is on just calling it episode 13, so I'm gonna call it episode 13, simply titled The War of Underworld. Now, what do you say we go ahead and start with the OP, since the opening scene is basically just a recap of what happened back in episode 12. So the OP, I actually thought was kind of neat. I will say the song for both the OP and the ED leave a little bit to be desired. I found the OP and ED for the first part of War of Underworld to be way better. But I will say that the visuals, I don't know what I just said there, the visuals of the OP are actually pretty solid. I thought the use of a colorless Kirito is pretty genuinely on point. The whole completely white, no color Kirito showing the absolute empty shell that Kirito has become in the aftermath of what happened in the first half of Alicization. So I thought the use of colorless Kirito was really cool. Great visual metaphor. You know me. I love me some visual storytelling. So I thought that was really neat, especially in the OP. You want the OP to be kind of laced with symbolism the whole way through. I will say mixing the casts was interesting. I do consider these to be two totally separate casts that are now colliding. You have the OG SAO cast, and then you have the Alicization cast. And seeing them all mixed together in the OP it almost felt surreal to see these two separate entities in my mind, actually combine. I know they're part of the same series, but I think a lot of you know what I'm talking about. We were talking about this a lot during Alicization about how much, no offense to characters like Klein, I love Klein, but how much better the Alicization cast ended up being. And just how they felt like two totally different casts from two totally different series, but seeing them collide here is really neat. And I thought it was interesting how only specific colors were shown, and more interesting to me at the very least, even though I know some people are gonna be like, but you love colors. I do love colors, but it's basically just trying to zero in on who each character is, just based off the specific color that they are typically associated with. So again, I thought that was neat, but more interesting to me is where they are, and that is the fact that these characters are hanging out IRL, they're all in the real world seemingly, and seeing the Alicization characters in the real world is bizarre. It's like seeing fantasy characters drawn by artists in fan art where they're hanging out with a Starbucks cup or something like that, where you're like, that looks bizarre, but I like it, and that's how I feel about this. I'm it looks weird to see these fantasy-esque characters hanging out in a modern setting, but I can't deny it's kind of cool, and a part of me is wondering if maybe that's where we're gonna go, if that's what's gonna happen at the end, maybe they find a way to get their fluctlights or whatever they're called into bodies in the real world. I really doubt it, but I part of me was just maybe that's where we're going. I don't think that's physically possible, but I thought that for a second. Are we gonna get a Detroit Become Human situation where they get put into robot bodies, but they technically have souls, and they can hang out in the real world so that they can be part of the OG crew? I don't know. I'm speculating. I'm probably way off, and light novel fans are probably but actually, save it. Don't say anything. Don't say a word. But the one thing I will say that I love, because I love this character, is that the one who sort of reawakens Kirito in terms of the OP is Yu-Gi-Oh! My son. My precious boy, my precious Yu-Gi-Oh! How I miss Yu-Gi-Oh! I really miss Yu-Gi-Oh! I just miss this kid's presence, man. And Nobunaga Shimizaki's presence in the show was also, of course, he voices most of the characters that I like, Haru, Yuki, Shars. Like, I miss that man's presence in the series, and I just miss Yu-Gi-Oh! In general. So I liked the fact that the show hasn't forgotten Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is still even in death, he is still, like, a key part of this cast and a driving force in the narrative, especially for Kirito. So I liked that in the OP we actually see him like sort of holding the cube. I believe that's the cube that Alice is in the big thing. It's been a while. I've forgotten most of like the names of all the tech, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Holding the cube thing. And then, like, I think a tear drops or something. Like, something falls off the cube, and it awakens Kirito underneath the water, and it surges him into his SAO outfit, which, like, I was like, why is he wearing the Aincrad outfit? Like, that's neat, but it's a little confusing. I was like, that's weird. I don't know why he's wearing that specifically. He should be wearing his Alicization outfit, right? Because that's what he's wearing in the show. I don't know. Like, it's the OP. They're going for the metaphor, and when you think of Kirito, you don't really think of him in the Alicization outfit. You think of him in the Aincrad outfit. So for the purposes of the OP, it works. I was a little like, okay, that's an interesting decision, but again, for a general, the general audience, I think we can all agree, yeah, his Aincrad outfit is the best outfit, so, like, I get it. But it was a little interesting. I just thought it was a little interesting, worth noting. And then we have the return of my girl, return of Sinon. It's been a while since we've seen my girl. Is it Sinon or Shinon? I've always called her Sinon, so we'll just pretend like it's a nickname if I'm mispronouncing it. Sinon, it's been a hot minute since we last saw her, and honestly, I think, like, Alice has become my favorite of, like, the other girls. Like, Austin is clearly, like, the best, but, like, Alice has had so much development that she's kind of, like, just de facto become, like, one of my favorite of the ensemble, but Sinon is one of those characters that I've always really, really appreciated. I really like her character. I think she's, like, the best part of the GGO arc, which is an arc that I think I've said a handful of times. I like and I dislike at the same time. The GGO is a bit of a mixed bag, but Sinon whatever. Sinon has always been the crux of that. In fact, you know what? Screw it. Sinon is going to be nicknamed Cinnabon. Why? Because, and my girl Cinnabon is coming back with a design that I will admit is very complicated. It's a little loud. I will, like, and you know what I mean by loud, right? It's a lot, right? It's a lot. And I feel bad for whoever is animating, whichever poor animator has to work on the Sinon scenes, or the Cinnabon scenes, because it's a lot. But I will say she's adopted more of the ALO design, which I think is interesting. If you remember, like, when we first met Sinon, her hair was more teal, and she wore a mostly green and black outfit back in the GGO arc. But when she made the hop over to Alfheim Online, she started incorporating more blue. Like, her hair went from teal to a light blue, and there was more blue in the design. And then eventually, by the time we get to Alicization, she is basically abandoned green and is almost entirely blue with some light gold trimming throughout the character design to break up the outfit a little bit. And even though I do think that her design is a little bit loud, and I feel bad for whichever animator has to deal with the chief animation directors yelling at them about the design for this when they're animating, and yes, I said chief animation directors. From what I remember from part 1 and what I assume is carrying over into part 2, there is 3. Remind me to talk about that if I forget about it, because I think that's really interesting. But again, while her design is complex, which would make it more hard to animate since there's more details to add into the character, I do think it's kind of cool. Like, sometimes I'm just a sucker for, like, overly designed characters, and I think it's cool. Like, I know it makes it complicated to animate her, but hey, you hardly notice. Like, when they are animating Sinon scenes, she looks great, and I don't know. I think, even though it's complex, I think it's kind of neat. And let's go ahead and talk about some color design. If you missed it, I've mentioned before that instead of saving the design time segments of these videos for the end, I'm just going to kind of talk about it as we go to make these videos a little bit more cohesive. And I will say that the blue, the mostly blue outfit, mostly blue and white, I will say, but it's more specifically blue now. And I will say that the blue actually does match Sinon and what she's gone through pretty well. Sinon's character, at least as far as I can tell, and like the way that I've been interpreting the story so far, like she's become a much more responsible member of the OG team. Like she is the responsible one, she's the reliable one. And blue is usually associated with responsibility. Like when you think about like blue, you typically think of like leaders in authoritative roles, like cops and governors and crap like that. Like blue is typically the role associated to those characters. So blue as a color has this sort of like responsible nature to it. It's also tied to spirituality, which may not seem like it makes sense, but given that she's taken over the body of this essentially a goddess, like it makes sense why they would try to tie that a little bit into her character design. But again, she's already been morphing into a more blue over green design for a while, so I do think it makes a lot of sense. And I did something that I haven't had to do yet, and I've been waiting for this moment. Ya boy busted out his tarot deck for this. Yes, I know tarot is silly and goofy, but at the same time, listen man, I like it. Much like SAO, I know it's silly and goofy, and I know it probably doesn't mean much, but I like it a lot, so don't friggin' at me, okay? So I busted out my tarot deck. Now I had to bust out the booklet because I haven't like read tarot in like years, but I had the tarot booklet and I wanted to look up what's up with the four swords that sort of hang out around Sinon. Do they mean something, or is she just a big Zelda fan? Turns out the four swords actually do have a meaning that could connect both to Sinon and more specifically to her relationship and dynamic currently with Kirito. So in the tarot deck, you have your major arcana and your minor arcana. And your minor arcana involves stuff like wands, swords, I believe cups and coins, I believe. And so when you look at, these minor arcana have like 1 through 10, and then a jack, a queen, and a king, sort of like a playing deck, right? So when you have the swords and the four swords, that specific minor arcana is meant to represent recuperation, meditation, retreat, amongst other things. Now, retreat being more of a negative thing, but I still think it makes a lot of sense given the narrative, and especially what Sinon says in this scene specifically. When she sees Kirito, she is sad, obviously. It hurts her to see him like that. But she has the most reserved, and again, blue, right? Very blue. She has the most reserved and responsible sort of response, right? She feels bad, but she's calm. She has that blue, calm mind, right? She's calm about it. And she knows that this man is recuperating, and that when the time comes, Kirito will come back. So I think of the cast, she represents the side that knows that Kirito is going to just recuperate and come back. So I think that could be what the swords are meant to represent, that she's the one who is aware that she's the most meditative in terms of this current situation. And even in the way that she's presenting herself, not just towards Kirito, but towards the other characters, she's the most calm one, the most meditative, chill one of the group so far. Especially judging by the fact that we got our boy Klein, who is probably going to be losing his shit, because that's what Klein do. But I do think that that's really interesting. And in terms of the minor arcana, swords are also under the element of air. And as we find out, Sinon can friggin' fly, so, that actually works out quite well. At least I think so. Is it a stretch? Abso-friggin-lutely it is, yes. But, I mean, we always dig way too deep into character design here. It's just fun. And speaking of fun, it's a little bit fun to see Ronnie and Tease meet some of the more, even more of the real world characters. I don't know how to feel about her calling it the real world, because I'm like, aren't you gonna do a number on their brain by calling it the real world? It's I know it's the real world, but like, think about their feelings a little bit, Sinon, my god. But I love the fact that Ronnie and Tease are like, is everybody, like, are all his friends girls? Like, that's weird. And I'm like, yeah, it kind of is. I mean, this man does have guy friends. They exist, but it's just that they're Klein and Eggle. He used to have a guy friend. His name was Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh, Yu-Gi-Oh, my boy, I miss you. But anyway, that scene basically just wraps up with them realizing, like, wait, Sinon, you can fly? And she's like, yeah. And they're like, okay, then you're gonna go save Alice. And I'm like, oh shit, that's good timing, actually. And then we gotta talk about, and I'm gonna keep it brief because I want these videos to be fun and happy. And I don't really want to harp on the negative points of SAO because I feel like there are other bigger YouTubers who are probably going to do that regardless. You know who I'm talking about, and listen, I ain't starting no beef. If you don't like SAO, you don't like SAO. It is what it is, but I know there's going to be people who are going to want to harp on all the negative parts of SAO. I don't really care to. I'm going to let them do that. However, I'm also not going to hide from the negative points of the show. I will call them out, but I'm not going to rag on the show for them. But I would be a little bit of a liar if I said the whole episode was perfectly great. Because this whole last scene is perfectly not great. And that scene in question, you've probably already been seeing the screenshot of it. It's it's the whole Leafa scene. Woof. This is like, there's no dancing around it. This is like literally everything that I disliked about the fairy dance arc. It's everything. This scene is everything that people think SAO is, you know. And you're not helping your case when you put it in your show and it lasts for so long. Like, it goes on, and I'm like, oh my god, like, this scene only needed to be like 5 goddamn seconds. Like, not literally 5 seconds, but like, it's just, it didn't need to be as long as it was. It felt way gratuitous. And it's everything that people don't like about, like, don't do this. I thought we moved past this. Like, SAO felt like such a refresh because you didn't get scenes like this. The only one I can think of that, like, maybe went too gratuitous is the scene with Ronnie and Tease and those 2 older classmates and stuff. But that was meant to be horrifying. You weren't supposed to find that titillating because it wasn't titillating. Whereas this, it's like they're really trying to be like, oh, isn't Leafa hot? And I'm like, no, she's not. Like, and like, why are you doing this? And I'm not saying that Leafa's not an attractive character design or anything. It's just like, this situation is not hot. This is creepy and weird. And it's everything that people don't like about the show. So why is it in here? Like, not even fans of SAO like this shit. So why is this here? Like, the only people who like this are like the weird, creepy side of the SAO fandom, which is small, but they be vocal. And what kills me too is like the 3 characters involved. I'm like, these are like my 3 least favorite characters in the whole series. You got Leafa, who I cannot stand, and yes, I still blame her, and yes, I'm still salty. That's 100% on me. I know it's not on the character, but I blame her. So when she showed up, I'm like, oh my god, and she calls this orc a human, and I'm like, bruh, like, you were briefed on the situation. Okay, Leafa, whatever. And I'm not even gonna bother to give her a character design. Like, it's exactly the same. It's friggin' green. And then you have Orcman, Lil Pelin, who I will just be calling Lil Orc, because his name is literally, Lil is in his name, so I'm gonna just call this man Lil Orc. Lil Orc is there, and then D-I-L is the name of the baddie, I guess. D-I-L, Dill. I'm gonna call her Dill Pickle. So Dill Pickle attacks and then is basically all G-Entai with Leafa, and Lil Orc has to overcome his own failings and does the whole like system alert thing. And okay, this is where I am going. I know I said I wasn't gonna harp on this, and I'm sorry. And y'all know me. I like SAO. I have plenty of videos that will go into that. But I'm not going to shy away from the things that I think are bad. And this is like, everything about this scene I thought was terrible. And not just because of the Leafa thing. That's gratuitous and gross, don't get me wrong. But my big issue with it is I'm like, okay, so you've been trying to show Leafa as strong for like the longest time, but when you put her in these embarrassing ass situations, it makes everybody just think that she's the friggin' worst. 'Cause she kind of is. And then you have Dill Pickle over here, who literally just shows up out of the blue, goddamn random, attacks Sinon, attacks Leafa, and then I guess is dead. Like, okay, waste of a character. I didn't like her, but you could have done something with her. The only character who I think actually walks away from this, like, somewhat saved is Lil Orc. But even then, this is the same problem that people have with Super Saiyan. What do I mean by that? Well, do you remember how Super Saiyan in Dragon Ball was like a big deal? And when it happened, it was like, yeah, like a few people did it, right? Like, and it was a big deal when it happened. Like, when Goku does it, it's holy shit, like, this is insane, this is the craziest thing ever. And then when Vegeta does it, you're like, oh my god, so Vegeta could do it too, so like, what does that mean? Like, do you have, like, so you don't have to be pure of heart? Like, oh, what, man, that's crazy. And then when Gohan goes Super Saiyan 2, you're like, oh shit, like a whole new level, this is insane. And then the Buu Saga happens, and Goten and Trunks can just do that shit. And suddenly Super Saiyan is way less impactful than it once was. Don't even get me started on Super. Like, I love Super, but don't even go, I'm not even gonna go there. Tingly back. But anyway, when the system alert first happened, I lost my shit. And it made Yu-Gi-Oh! Look like a goddamn beast for overcoming that. Now everybody gets over System Alert, man. Lil Orc can beat System Alert. Like, he can blow up his friggin' eyeball and just get over that. Man, I don't know why that bugged me, but that really bugged me. But that said, I do think you can do something cool with Lil Orc. I think his story is at least the most interesting of those three characters, and I did actually kind of feel bad for him. So I do want to see what happens with Lil Orc. But again, I'm just like, man, dang it. Also, them calling Lil Orc human is like, why can't he just be proud of being an orc? Why is it gotta be like, I'm human? Like, it's like, nah, bro, you're an orc. And there's nothing wrong with being an orc. Be an orc. Orcs are cool. What? Anyway, okay, so this leads us to the third and final scene. It's a scene like spread over two separate areas. We have the 300-esque scenario, and yes, we're getting back to the good stuff. We have the 300-esque scenario going on, where there's like these two big, like, they're like two big, I don't know, just two big kind of structures, and there's like a lane that goes through them. You know what's weird? It as much as I said it reminds me of 300, it actually kind of reminds me of like the two sphinxes, like those two, like, or were they sphinxes? I don't remember, but those two sphinxes from Neverending Story that Atreyu has to jump through, it reminded me of that. Like, there's no statues like that, but for some reason that's what popped in my head. I don't know why. But yeah, it's basically this long hall, essentially, like an open, like two big pillars, and there's this long pathway between them. So basically, you can funnel the bad guys through this tunnel, and it forms this sort of 300-esque scenario. And I thought that this whole thing was great. The animation in this scene is on point. And allow me to stress that too. Like, and this is where I'll bring in the three separate chief animation directors. With A1, I know at the very least it's gonna look fantastic, no matter the show. Well, most of the time. And with SAO, it is no exception. I don't care how you feel about SAO. It is without a doubt one of the most badass looking action series I can think of. Like, the animation, especially in Alicization, is outrageously good. You cannot argue that. And I really think here it just shows off, like they want to remind you, like, hey man, this is SAO. We got some of the dopest fight scenes in the game. They don't always make a lot of sense, but goddamn, they are dope as hell. And the thing is, like, I'm shocked it looks as good as it does, because the staff list for the show is enormous. Like, there's, like, don't get me wrong, the staff list is always big for any anime project, but like, normally there's like one chief animation director. There is three. Now, I don't know if this is still how it works from part 1 to part 2, but from part 1, you had Yumiko Yamamoto, you had Go Suzuki, and Kento Toya, all of whom did, like, basically split the work between the three of them. Yamamoto did episodes 1, 4, 7, and 10. Suzuki did episodes 2, 5, 8, and 11, and Toya did episodes 3, 6, 9, and 12. That sounds really complicated. I have to imagine that making this show was a nightmare. Like, just based off, like, my own research into the series, I have to assume that the staff are, like, just going insane. It sounds like a nightmare, but then again, like, every anime project, when you get down to it, is a chaotic mess. It's a wonder any anime gets made at all. But SAO Alicization War of Underworld Part 2, again, that is a mouthful, really stresses that point. But at the same time, it's worth it, because my god, it looks fantastic. And this whole scene basically ends with some top quality English, which I love, and the sudden appearance of my boy! It's Klein! Klein to the rescue! And oh my god, this man like, is way stronger than he has any right to be. Now listen, Klein is my favorite, but that's because Klein is a big dumb doofus. And I'm shocked that they made Klein look so badass. Like, he does that cyclone thing, and he, like, lands down, and Austin is like, wait a minute, and then he lifts up the friggin' sword, and he rests the katana on the back of the shoulder there, and he's like, yo, and it's like, God, where have you been, you beautiful bastard? Like, Klein, yes, oh my God, I missed you. Like, I love Klein. He's such a dork. I don't know why, but, like, somehow, even though he just had, like, this badass scene, and I don't know if you could tell by my voice, I realized how excited I sounded. I'll try to dial it down, but screw it, I'm happy. Like, I know how like, dorky Klein is, and I know how dorky my love for Klein is, but it's just funny to me that even in this moment of, like, him being a badass, like, taking out multiple dudes in one hit, or one, like, big cyclone thing, and he lands, it's still Klein. Like, when you see him, you're like, this dork, like, where have you been, you beautiful bastard? I missed you, Klein. And speaking of characters I missed, man, I miss Bercouli. And yeah, we about to talk about this. This is the second half of the final scene. Bercouli versus Gabriel Miller happens. Now, Bercouli is a character, man, that I have grown weirdly attached to. It could just be because I love the SAO. Junichi Suwabe voicing characters like Aizawa, Archer, Victor, Otasaku, like tons of characters that I absolutely adore. I think most suited to this, though, is the fact that he voiced Abakio in JoJo's. And there is some time shenanigans going on in this series, and I mean, like, if you've seen Part 5, you'll know there is some time shenanigans going on in Part 5. It was something that Abakio would be no stranger to, and something that I assume Junichi Suwabe would also be no stranger to. So I do think the whole time aspect of the time-splitting sword that Bercouli wields, I don't know, just something about the fact that there's a JoJo character using a time-splitting sword. I don't know, I just find that funny. And this fight, man, this has been a long time coming. Like we knew that this fight was gonna happen for a while now. Like, if you remember back, I think the first OP of War of, yeah, like, was it War of Underworld or was it actually Alicization? I don't remember. It was one of the OPs from a while back, and you see, like, Bercouli versus Gabriel Miller, and it is, like, that, the fight in that OP, I was just like, this fight is gonna be dope. And so far, yeah, it's pretty dope, but it is also, like, shockingly one-sided. I, for some reason, thought this would be closer. Maybe that's because they built Bercouli up so much, but now I'm realizing that they're about to job my boy out, which, that's sad. But at the same time, it just makes Gabriel Miller look like a total badass, which, I mean, like, he kind of is. Like, Gabriel Miller, I love this dude, mostly because he's absolutely goddamn insane. When I say I love him, it's more of those, like, one of those I love to hate him type things. You know those characters where you're like, God, you're such a despicable asshole. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just kind of love seeing them on screen. And the whole fight is just, I don't know, like, there's something about it that just really, really works for me. I think it's the stakes at, like what's at stake and the two men involved, you know? Like, Gabriel Miller being, like, a total psycho is just, he's just fun to see on screen. He doesn't quite go as insane as I wanted him to go, because we've seen this man go, like, full tilt bozo. So I want to see this man go crazy again. I really wanted to see that happen against Bercouli. We didn't quite see it just yet. Hopefully we see it next week. But I think what makes it interesting is this whole, like, spacing out thing. Like, it adds a layer to the fight where it's like, okay, so this man at any point can make Bercouli, like, space out, and in that moment he can, like, really do some damage. We see this man cut off Bercouli's arm, and he does it in this, like slick ass way. He just shoves the sword between his arm and his torso, and then turns it, and then just slices. And it's like, oh, you cut my man's arm off! Like, god damn. People in SAO react to their arm being cut off like people in Star Wars. You know, it's like, my arm! Well, that's fine, I can fix it later. It's just like, alright, I guess, whatever. But I think the thing that I found the most interesting is, like, the last shot and what Bercouli says, where he basically apologizes to Alice, saying, like, listen, I wasn't the guardian you wanted me to be. I wasn't the parental figure that you deserved. But there's one thing, and I don't even know my own parents, but if there's one thing I know, it's that a parent will die protecting their child. And I was like, show? If you kill Bercouli, I swear to God, if Bercouli dies, I'm gonna be pissed. I love Bercouli so much. He is not allowed to go. He is not allowed to go. You cannot have him. Nope, you took away Yu-Gi-Oh, you took away Eldry. No, you cannot have him. You cannot have Berkuli. Absolutely not. I refuse. Nope. Nope. Screw you, Alicization. No, you cannot have Berkuli. Last thing I gotta mention before we wrap up is the ED. I thought the ED was pretty rad. Kirito wandering around through Limbo kind of gave me like Tokyo Ghoul and Kingdom Hearts vibes without getting into that kind of stuff for spoiler reasons. But that's kind of what, like, it had that vibe of just this like empty, strange place, like these weird buildings like made of all gray marble, and it's just Kirito on his own for a while, riding on a boat through what I have to assume is the river Styx, until again my boy Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh, Yu-Gi-Oh! I miss you so much, my boy. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Basically appearing and sort of launching Kirito back to reality. It's a cool ED. Again, like I feel the same way about the ED as the OP, where I think the visuals are better than the song, which is too bad because I thought the songs for Alicization were way better, especially Unlasting. Unlasting is probably my new favorite SAO like ED in general. I love that friggin' song. I love those visuals. But yeah, I thought the ED was pretty cool too. But with that said, everybody, those are all of my thoughts on SAO Alicization War of Underworld Part 2. My god, that title is very long. Episode 13, War of Underworld. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, then don't forget to boop that up snoot and share if you care. And of course, as always, I have to give a big thank you to the lovely members of the T Squadron. Look at these beautiful names. If you would like to join this list of beautiful people, these beautiful people who miss Yu-Gi-Oh so much, then be sure to check out that first link in the description to check out our Patreon page. And for as little as a cup of coffee a month, you can help keep this channel afloat, and I would sincerely appreciate it. Now with that said, everybody, I am going to go edit this video and have myself a warm cup of tea, and until next time, you stay classy, AniTube, and wash your dang hands.